Hello and welcome to PD in a Pocket. I'm really excited because today we've got two interviews for you today, but this particular one is with an educator, a family daycare educator. So one of you guys, and I always get excited when we can get an educator on. So I'd like you to welcome Lou Reid.
Hi Lisa. Nice to actually meet you, and it's lovely to have been put forward by, that amazing group.
Yeah, it was Little Scientists.
That put you
on to me.
I've done a little bit of work with them on a bush tucker webinar.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, what got you as an educator into wanting to do STEM activities with children?
I guess first and foremost, having been quite creative myself, I've done some interior design study and fine arts amongst a few other things. So I just believe that children have, innate ability to want to learn, and they have, vast amount of interest in the environment, in their world. So they have an innate ability to learn and discover, and that's sort of the reason. Because I've been in the industry a long time, I also wanted to try and step out of the box a little bit, use a lot of raw materials, because they're always connecting to STEM themselves. If you look at, how parts of nature are structured, there's a reason why they are. And it was about also being able to show children real life things to connect them to what they're learning. So yeah, just I mean, my attitude is that they can absorb so much more than many of us think that they can. So I just try and open up that field as much as I can.
I think that's a really good way to go. And I agree with you. They can absorb a lot more, and they can ask really intelligent questions.
Oh, yeah. I've got a few good questions I could share with you.
What happens if you don't know the answers? Do you become a co-researcher and help them find out?
Absolutely, on the spot.
Yeah.
So I'll example of that quickly. When we were doing shapes recently, because I've got three that were going to prep this year, so mine already know all the basic shapes. So we do more like the complex shapes, like dodecagon and pentagon. And one day a little fella said to me, "What's a 10-sided shape, Louise?" And I said, "Oh, well, I don't know. Let's have a little look." So we Googled it. So we found two new shapes, and one was a dodecagon, and we learnt about that, and it was a member of the pentagon and hexagon family. They collected natural objects to glue onto it, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And then we launched into make up all my own songs as well. So I resurrected the shape song, and then we went out into the environment. So just connecting that with the STEM, going to the environment, and can we find a hexagon? Because I've got lots of old nests. We connected that with some of the bees' nests that I'd connected, wasp nests I've connected over the years. Like, because I've just moved, I've got so many resources in the shed. I could have just showed everyone how I do things. Like, I guess here's an example here, a seed pod to one of my little people. It's got like little circles and ovals in it. So for a younger one, because I did have one 2-year-old, then I would show her a physical example of what a oval is or a circle, opposed to just doing it on a piece of paper, because that's how children learn. They want to feel and touch. I mean, sometimes even lick things, so
of course.
That's how I actually always do things. Or like I think sometimes we overthink things. Another example would be when we did dinosaur dig with bones and medical center, we learn about bones. Like, it's as simple as looking at the bone. What sort of shape is that? But why is there a shape like that? So it's more asking those questions, not ever making an assumption and overlooking little things, because little things to us are not little things to children. And if we explore them a bit more, they're definitely not little things to us. So
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's how I do
shapes is one STEM activity that you've done with
Yeah.
your children. What are some
Yeah.
others that you've done recently, or some that you think worked really well?
Yeah, I guess, well, I hadn't done dinosaurs for about a year, so we did dinosaurs. So, you know, and a lot of people do the volcanoes, but what I wanted to do was, you know, research specifically right on the spot with them, because I wanted to teach them just by using a little bit of technology. You can find out things. So it was just the basic, taught them the basic action of the bicarb interacting with the vinegar and causing a acid reaction, which is the same thing that happens in a soft drink bottle. That's a great way of explaining it to a child. So explaining it, that's how volcanoes erupt, which thus helped make some of the dinosaurs became extinct. So, and continuing on from that, I've got a lot of volcanic rock, so which is just pumice stone, which a lot of people may not know. So that's been collected on the beaches here. So I've got lots of big, and I tried to find them, but they're packed away. So big pumice rocks, and just a simple STEM activity is putting them in water, and you know, they're light, then they become heavier because they absorb the water. Why do they sink? You know, so it's just as simple as one little activity
Lead
can
into a
flow
whole
over
heap more.
into another. So then they sank, and then from there setting up a beautiful water theme, you know, and filling up big queen palm fronds and adding shells. And I've got beautiful ones I painted myself, and I forgot to get them down for you. So lots of different ways to extend on those things. Yeah, so that was one. Another medical, when we did medical center, and a lot of my learning overlaps is learning about the human body. So I teach them how babies are really born, you know, obviously with permission from the parents and things like that. And then looking at bones again, why do they have holes in them? You know, they were alive once. What function did they have for us? Because if the child, then that's how they learn to count, with steppers on the way in, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but having a little group of knuckle bones where they sign in on the board, counting them, looking at the little holes, why they got holes, what function do those holes have. So it's just maybe, I think it's looking at every single object in nature, that the question is what purpose did that serve? And having the respect to teach a child, not making an assumption that that's not important, because that's probably one of the most important things you can teach a child. What is the object for? Why is it like that? Yeah.
So it's important to foster their curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Yeah. And, you know, another example is just a bark on a tree. That can be connected to the medical centre. You know, why does a tree have bark? Take them to a park. You know, perhaps there's been a tree that has had one of its branches cut off, and you can see the growth rings, you know. Connecting with medical centre, why do we have skin? What's its function? How many layers? And you can break it down really easily for a child. You know, look, you've got a little scratch there, so you've exposed your skin. You know, why is it important to cover it with a Band-Aid? Because how often do we do a washing hands song, which teaches them about germs? And I've made up lots of those too. So they're seeing real life. Why have I got skin? Most children come in and show you all their sores they've got. You know, don't break the skin or protect the skin if you do. And that's the function of a tree. That why do we have to respect a tree? Why do we have to respect a plant? Because they have protection mechanisms as well. So it's just breaking those little things down. And like STEM is everywhere. And then the child wants to know more. I mean, that's I guess where Lucas's question from what's a 10-sided shape, because he was just so bored with pentagon and hexagons. You wanted to know a little bit more, you know. So,
Yeah.
and that's just like, I guess, a normal part of my day. Sorry, I've got a dog
That's okay.
in the background if you hear all these gnarly noises.
Okay, so what about resources? Like, what resources do you think educators need to have to do STEM activities with children in their services?
I think they don't need to buy really expensive pieces, but I mean, I guess if they do and they want to put their money into something, then you can always add to it yourself. I think that it's maybe you can go for a walk along the beach or a park. Just, I mean, I guess with national parks, you've got to be careful. If it's a national park, you're not supposed to remove objects, but finding things in nature, like it's as simple as things like that I've collected. When I use little tiny peg dolls, I mean, some of these I've made, that's their bed. So these, they don't cost you anything. And scrap pieces of material, and a child just wrapping that material around this peg doll and putting it in that hole. And they're just, I think it's important to like have beautiful, aesthetically beautiful tactile objects, because children always want to know more. Another example is a piece of bark. Don't throw it out. Like, that's another little home for your dolls. And all these I made myself. You just go and buy the dolls. I mean, that was a activity about people from different countries, why they have dark skin, why we have light skin. Once again, you know, there's a bed for that baby, and that bed is far more stimulating to a child than a man-made object. So I think going to your landscaping supplies and just buying a couple of rocks, pieces of wood, a handful of stones, because they are far more fun, I guess, for a child to count. But then if you want to add a STEM activity, where did the stone come from and how was it made? It's so easy to teach. You know, you just jump on Google or DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine you use, and Google why. I mean, another example, that's a rainforest snail. And recently I moved, but I live near the rainforest. We just walk along and they would be out on the outskirts, just not live ones. We would never collect live ones, but that's how we taught the child about a spiral when we did patterns. So yeah, just really get out in nature and don't overlook anything. Like, I used to ride my push bike, and if any of the paper bark would fall off the melaleucas, I'd pick it up and use it as a mat in a display, and it's just so beautiful. And when you use lots of natural resources, children do learn to respect them. They explore them, but they don't like pull them apart. They know, they learn that to respect it, you know, because it's a natural object often, I think. Yeah, so
what about, you've spoken a lot about science activities. What about the mathematics component of STEM?
yeah, well, I'm not sure if I'm addressing this correctly, but when I've done like a science experiment, say looking at bones, we might I'll incorporate an activity where the child, we might be doing, you know, 1 + 1 or 5 + 10. You know, some of them were love maths, but I'd use like a knuckle bone. We'd give the parents activities, you know, when if you eat meat, if you save the knuckle bones and dry it out, that's a science activity you can do at home with the child, you know. Like, it sounds a bit gruesome, but that's the real world, you know. If you want to teach them that, why does the knuckle bone have a tendon on it, why doesn't it, then you bring it in, and they're more inclined to use those to count. So I've got like a whole container full that I've collected over the years, and that's how they learn to count. So that's how I incorporate maths. But you could sort of, when we did shapes, we went out, and at that last house I had lots of banana palms, and we'd find like a row of dots that a caterpillar had eaten through, and that's how we'd count all the dots. But then again, on the spot, you can say, wonder why these dots are here. Can we find the caterpillar and quickly research what species, or how come those dots are all in a row? How far apart are they? Like, I had children bringing in their tape measures as well. So when you open up that little can of worms, basically, they start to do it themselves, and it's actually really, really exciting. Yeah, so all those sorts.
Okay, so is there one thing you'd like to tell the educators, listening about how much fun STEM can be?
I think what I feel that with all programming, like some of my programming, I guess with the pictures looks complicated, but when you just start with one small activity, what is the child interested in? Say you're doing the life cycle of a butterfly, you could do your social emotional scene with that, but then what can you teach them? What is metamorphosis? Why does it happen? Just pick one object, whether it's science, maths, technology, engineering, out of it. Like engineering, what's the process of metamorphosis? How does that happen? So I guess, and just break that down for the child, because then they're more inclined to respect the butterfly that comes out and spends a couple of hours drying its wings. They're not going to want to touch it because it might damage the wings. So I think my best advice would be to pick one thing and not overcomplicate it. And then the educator would realise how easy that might work.
I think that's brilliant advice.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing your time with us today. And
my absolute pleasure.
And thank you also for sharing your photos. Some of the photos that you'll see in this session, people, are photos of Mari's practice. So, sorry, Louise's practice.
Okay.
I don't know why I suddenly got Mari.
That's all right. And feel free to share the link to my page, even with any educators that wants to join it. My Facebook page.
That's a good idea. I'll put it up in the Facebook page we have for PD in a pocket. That would be wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.